I appreciate everybody showing up. We've got two sections of the sewage policy resolutions that staff wants to propose a couple of changes in. So I think I'm just going to turn it over to Courtney and Michael and let them walk everybody through what they're. I think we're going to look at what the existing policy says and then look at the proposed changes.
Yes, that's right. So before we start, I'm going to have Patrice call the roll.
Okay. Good morning, commissioners. Again, I'm calling the roll for the Planning and Policy Committee first, and then I'll call the roll for the rest. So, Chairman Tom Griffin.
Here.
Commissioner Wesley Curtis.
Present.
Commissioner Dwayne Long.
Here.
Commissioner Charles Wilson. And then I'll go down to the rest. Chairman Randall Tuttle.
Present and somewhat accounted for.
Okay. Commissioner Harold Day. Commissioner Yvonne Hines. Commissioner Hugh Jernigan.
Present.
Commissioner Chris Parker. Why do I want to call you Charles, Mr. Parker?
Present.
Okay. Commissioner Allen Younger. Commissioner Donald Stewart. Okay, that's the roll for the commissioners.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Patrice. All right, well, so we'll go ahead and get started, and hopefully will not take too much of your time. I don't think it'll take the full hour, and I'll turn it over to Sewerage after I share my screen. But as Mr. Chairman Griffin said, we do have some minor changes that we want to make to the sewage policy resolutions. I also want to introduce Nick Webster. He's on the call. He is our risk manager and helps the utility department administer our good neighbor policy and our claims for sewer backups. So basically, yeah, we have a policy regarding maintenance of our sewer system, with the section 25 of maintenance of our sewer system, and then section 26, which is the good neighbor policy. So I'm not going to do Mike Stover's job for him. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to him and let him explain all this. So let me share my screen. All right. Okay, I'm assuming everyone can see it.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you, Courtney. Thank you, commissioners, for joining us this morning. So what is the good neighbor policy? Pretty much it's section 25 and 26 of the sewer use resolution. In particular, it's sewer backup assistance for property owners. And below are 4 criteria requirements for reimbursement. The first one is the backup must be caused in the sewer main and cannot be caused by a stoppage on the sewer lateral itself. It must be the first sewer backup at that address. The customer must sign a release waiving any further claims in exchange for payment. And the customer also has to agree to install backflow valve, which is a form of a check valve, which will prevent sewage from coming back to the home. The next slide, and this is laid out in section 26, you'll see shortly. These are the reimbursement limits that are in our current policy. We haven't changed these at all. We're not proposing to change them. If the property is insured, we can pay up to $1,000 in deductibles. If not, we can pay up to $15,000 for property damage or $5,000 for personal property and/or reasonable hotel accommodations. This is a good schematic showing responsibilities between Winston-Salem County Utilities and the property owners. This is a drawing of a sewer lateral tied into the sewer main on the very left side. Courtney, if you point to that, that is the sewer main that we maintain. There's a line right there in the middle, which is the right-of-way line or easement line, right there. And typically there's a clean out stack that we use for access to if we need to access that as a courtesy and unstop the section between the clean out and the public main. What we ask plumbers and property owners, if there is a blockage, is to clear the blockage all the way from the house to the sewer main, in the street. And if they do that, 9 times out of 10, it resolves the issue. Sometimes it does not. Maybe there's a break or a defect between the clean out the right of way and the main, and we go back and repair that. So one of the things you'll see here in a couple of slides, we are changing one of the section 25 from maintenance to repair, because we're asking these customers to maintain all the way to the public main, because that serves only their dwelling. Any questions on this slide? Okay. Nick Webster with our risk management department put these next 2 slides together, showing the number of claims that we've paid per year over the last 6 years. This one's number of claims. You can see y-axis is number of claims and year on the x-axis. And the next slide is amount that we've paid per year. They're very similar. Any questions on those two? Okay.
One quick question. So what's the difference between 2016 and 21? What's attributed to that?
Nick, do you want to answer that?
Well, I apologize. That was the year I got here. I do remember we had one particularly bad claim right after I got here that may have been the culprit in that instance. But if you would like, I could look into that and see if we could find out some more information as to what in particular caused that spike in 2016.
Yeah, no, if it's just one claim, that's one thing. I didn't know if there was something that changed in how they were installing pipes or requiring certain things that made a difference in it. Okay. All right. Okay.
No, I would say that overall, some of this is there's no be to it. It's just it's kind of random with the claim.
It's very random. We're dealing with relatively small numbers of claims, and the situations vary significantly. So I haven't seen anything to suggest to me that there are any patterns. I haven't seen anything that would reflect a pattern in regards to claim costs going up or claim costs going down, or the volume going up or the volume going down. That just seems to me to be relatively random.
Obviously, Nick, we limit the amount of money we pay to the $15,000, but we do pay reasonable hotel costs. If somebody were to go and stay in a hotel for 2 weeks, that may run the cost up, and it's something we can't really control, I would assume.
My understanding and my interpretation, and it was actually, Courtney and I discussed this the other day. My interpretation of the ordinance as written is that where it says in section 26A, it talks about for damage to real property and fixtures up to $5,000 up to $5,000 for damage to personal property and for hotel accommodation. It's my interpretation, since there's no comma between property and for reasonable hotel accommodations, that $5,000 includes both personal property and the reasonable hotel accommodation. So that would limit that somewhat. During my tenure as risk manager for almost 5 years to the day, I do not recall any situations in which we've had to put someone up in a hotel due to a sewer backup. Okay. So that's been my recollection. That's not to say it hasn't happened once or twice, but I don't recall it happening during my time, and it's not something that's very common.
Well, the spike would probably just be the number of claims in.
Let me get back.
Courtney, get back 2 slides. I believe the number of claims trend follows very closely to the amount.
Going the wrong way. That is right.
Yeah.
Given that these are all capped at a finite amount, the amount you pay is going to be highly correlated to the number of claims you have. Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, I would think that 2016 deal was probably within a standard deviation of what you expect, those kind of numbers we see.
Hi, this is Charles Wilson. I just joined. I just got out of the dentist.
Hey, Mr. Wilson.
Hi.
Okay, as Mr. Griffin mentioned earlier, here's the full section for section 25 is maintenance, and section 26 sewer backup claims, otherwise known as the good neighbor policy. They're not very large. The next two slides will show you the proposed changes for section 25 and section 26. So section 25 maintenance, we're asking to change the maintain to repair to be consistent with the diagram in the good neighbor policy. And then specify within the limits of the right of way or public easement, and take out the section in blue that says the first clean out beyond the public sewer main when constructed cast iron sewer pipe. And then the last part we added in here, the city will install suitable clean out fitting at its expense if deemed necessary. A lot of the local plumbers think that if there's not a clean out of the right of way line, they can call the city and we'll come out there and renew the connection immediately, and that's not the case. Any questions?
Mike, let me ask you. Mike, that one right there, the section in the right of way to the main is still owned by the individual, right?
Correct.
But you're saying here that we'll maintain or clean out that portion?
No.
That's in the right of way that belongs to them?
We're taking out the word maintain and putting repair. They own the connection. It serves only their dwelling for that one specific house. They're responsible for getting any blockage or any sewage from the house to the public main. The only difference, and this has been this way for as long as I've been here, in the public right of way, our utility repairs any defect. So we're continuing to do that. We're just trying to clarify the language a little bit.
Yeah, it's more of a courtesy, and like as Mike Sever mentioned, this is the way that it's operating for years, but it's the courtesy repair. We courteously clean out to in that section within the right of way.
And Mr. Long, part of the reason we do that, I believe, a plumber usually doesn't have they're not licensed utility contractors, and you can't work in the right of way unless you have a licensed utility contractor.
So on a new structure, is just a regular plumber allowed to run the connection from the main to the house?
No, for a new connection, a utility contractor would be hired to make the tap at the sewer main and put the connection into the right of way. And then a plumber would connect to the clean out and run to the house.
Yeah, okay.
And there are different, plumbers that are licensed to do utility work in the right of way, and they can do the entire connection at one time. But that's not always the case. Section 26C, Mr. Webster has proposed to remove this entire section, and then we call it the neighborhood instead of good neighbor, and we're taking out the hood part of that. Nick, do you want to talk about this section for a second?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So I think that the good neighbor policy in theory, so taking a step back, there are two ways that we pay a sewer claim here in the city of Winston-Salem. The first is a negligence claim. Those don't happen very often because, you know, our folks in the city county utilities are very astute. They know what they're doing. They're very conscientious workers. And so it's a rare occasion when they make some kind of mistake or are negligent in some way, and that ultimately it leads to some kind of disaster that causes a lot of property damage. But in the event that does happen, we'll pay the claim as a negligence claim because it's our fault. You know, it's something that we did, and we owe it to the individual we affected to make them whole. The good neighbor policy is not grounded in negligence. It's not grounded in the fact that we made a mistake necessarily. It primarily has to do with mainline blockages or mainline stoppages, which are something that are out of the control of the property owner. I don't know if any of you have ever had a blockage at your house. I had one at mine just right before my only child was born. Ended up having to come home to a floor that was just a concrete slab when I brought my baby home, which was great. But that was on us. That was us flushing non-flushable wipes, which Damon DeCane will tell you is a serious no-no, and which he's told me several times is a serious no-no. But there are situations in which the main line itself becomes blocked, whether it be due to tree roots or people flushing things down the drain they're not supposed to, or so on and so forth. And that is no fault of that is through no fault of the property owner who's affected. And to be quite honest, though, in the same vein, it's also not necessarily the fault of city county utilities, because if it's roots, of course we can't control Mother Nature. We have thousands and thousands of miles of main line to contend with. There's no way possible we could know where all the tree roots are, and I know we do a good job of trying to maintain the main line, but we can't know everything that's happening everywhere. And we also can't control what people are flushing down the drain or putting in the drain. I know things like grease. We don't put grease down the drain. These things solidify and they cause problems. They cause backups. So in regards to the good neighbor policy, what that created was a means by which you don't necessarily hang the property owner out to dry for something that he or she had no control of, and something that it's also a situation where we weren't negligent in causing the problem in the first place. So it's kind of a compromise. It's a compromise in that it says, you know, in these certain rare situations, where you didn't have any control, that we will pay, but we'll only pay up to a certain amount. It's not like the liability claims. A liability claim where we're negligent, there's no cap. It's hypothetically, it could go on forever. It could be infinite. But the good neighbor policy is capped, so we've got this compromise. So of course, we get to, I believe it's Section B, where it lays out it has to be a mainline blockage, it has to be your first time that this occurred, you have to install a check valve. So that's the compromise. We'll pay, but we have to meet these certain conditions. The problem with Section C is that Section C gets us out of the realm of the mainline blockage and gets us into the realm of the service line blockage. And if you all take a look at Section C here, the first line in this is claims for sewer backups which are not caused by mainline blockages, but blockages that occur in the service line. And then this says that these will only be considered in certain rare scenarios where there's the clean out, where the clean out's in the right of way, and where the blockage requires access from the main line to clean it out. So my concern with this is it's very rarely applied, very, very rarely applied. I'm not sure what the genesis of Section C was, but I don't know to what purpose it serves within the whole greater good neighbor policy, because it deals with service line blockages and doesn't deal with mainline blockages. So mainline blockages, that's someone else's sewage is causing the problem. Service line blockage, if the blockage is in the service line, then then in all likelihood that sewage or that blockage would have been generated from the property side. So I think it's kind of complicated how it reads. I don't think it serves very many situations. I also think that it could potentially end up with us paying for claims where the genesis of the blockage itself was within the service line and on the property side as compared to the main line. So I don't know that it's consistent with the overall spirit of the good neighbor policy. And that's one of the reasons, that's probably the primary reason why I've suggested that we remove it.
Thank you, Nick. Any questions on section C?
I've got one question regarding the backflow valves. Are we requiring those on newer installations going in, or if we repair one that's in the right of way, that they have a backflow valve?
We are not requiring that on new installations, from my understanding.
Okay.
Just for clarification, that backwater valve, that is a property side device that gets installed by the property owner outside of the right of way.
Michael, isn't it required, at least in certain properties, per the plumbing code?
It probably is the same rationale that we've always used. If your connection is lower than the next upstream manhole, if you think about the mainline blockage can back sewer up into that connection. So if you build a house on a lot where you know you're lower than the next upstream manhole, I suspect the plumbing code requires that there be a check valve installed at that location when it's new.
That is my understanding, Mr. Griffin. I do not know that for certain, but that is what I've been told, and I suspect that you're right.
I'll confirm that with our chief building official, but that's my understanding that the plumbing code requires it in that situation.
Right.
So Mike and Nick, this is Chris. As we are looking at eliminating this section 26, I know Nick said that it rarely happens, but do we have any data on the number of times and the cost to the city?
I would have to go back, and we'd have to go back and look at each individual case. I can't remember a case offhand where it's one of those things that may have happened a handful of times since I got here, but it is very rare that would ever come into play.
So in the future, if we struck this and it did come into play, then it's back on the homeowner?
That would be on the homeowner, yes.
Because it goes back to it's a blockage in the service line, so that's caused by the homeowner. You know, it's not in the public main. It's in that private connection that only serves that property.
I guess there could be a situation where you don't have a main line blockage, but we're out there doing work or doing something and create a situation where we actually end up blocking it. Nick said, obviously, the staff is well trained, and that would be a very rare circumstance. But I would assume if we did that, Courtney, that we would take responsibility for it, knowing the circumstances of what was going on.
Yes, absolutely. If it was something that originated from a blockage in the main and somehow got into the connection right there at in between the main and the right of way, then yes.
So really, Chris, the only thing that we're dealing with here is assuming that utilities takes responsibility for any work they're doing out there that might cause something in the connection, then really the only reason that you get a blockage in the connection is because of something that the homeowner has flushed.
All right.
Are there any, that was our last slide. I don't know if there are any other questions or if anybody wants to go back to
have you got a slide of A and B in 26 that they?
Yeah, this one. I don't know if you can see it. Do I need to? I don't know if I can blow it up, but. And I can send the link of where our policies are found online for everyone to review also. But basically, A is the section where it talks about the limits of what we'll pay up to. You know, the $15,000 for property damage and $5,000 for hotel and personal property damage. And then B talks about the mainline blockages, which is the intent of the good neighbor policy, is really blockages in the main. So C, the section C, the subsection C is really the only piece that we want to strike out.
Any other questions? Courtney, do you need, I guess we would just consider this, take it to the next meeting of the Utility Commission?
Yeah, so you know, if the Planning Policy Committee agree with our recommendations, then we would move it forward to be on the April agenda, these changes.
Well, I guess we need a vote. Anybody want to make a motion?
This is Wesley. Second.
All right.
Third.
All right. Well, Patrice, you want to call the roll of the committee?
The committee, yes, I'll be glad to. So, Tom Griffin, do you?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Curtis?
Yes.
Dwayne Long?
Yes.
Charles Wilson?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Unanimous. All right, we appreciate it.
Tom, it's Chris. I did have one more clarification on that. So if you've got a root intrusion in the right-of-way that causes the blockage, is a local plumber certified to fix that, or is that something that the city has to correct?
That's something the city would correct, because a plumber would not be allowed in the right-of-way from the clean out to the main. It's got to be a licensed utility contractor.
So in that situation, then the city would be responsible for that.
Yes.
If it's a root intrusion causing the blockage within that right-of-way.
To me,
Walker, let me try to answer that real quick too. The plumber has the ability and the authority to run his root auger all the way to the main. And that's what we expect out of them. If there's any repair work after that, we will go back from a utility standpoint and renew that connection from the sewer main in the street to the right-of-way line.
Okay.
If I may, one thing that I just remembered, we had a situation where we had, and this didn't kickstart this, but it kind of shares a little bit anecdotally as to maybe one of the problems is. One of the things that we often see is we often see plumbers will try to connect a blockage, a property side blockage, and what they'll do is they will push the blockage with their rooter or their snag all the way out to past the clean out, all the way to the almost all the way out to the main line, but not to the main line itself. And there was a situation where I believe not too long ago. One of the things that, well, I'm not a situation, but there was a situation not too long ago where just that thing happened. And one of the things that always concerned me is whether something like that happened and they pushed it all the way out almost to the mouth of the main to the point where we had to access the main to wash that out. Would that have fallen under Section C as something we would have had to have paid? By the letter of the law and by the letter of the policy. And that was another thing that just kind of creeped into my mind just now. So just some more food for thought on that.
Does that make sense? So basically the plumber's cleaning and they're pushing it. So it originated, between the right of way and the house, the blockage, And when they went through to push it to the main, they didn't take it all the way to the main. Which is one reason why we want to clean up that language.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Anything else?
Oh, I have one little quick thing. There's a city nearby us. It's very, very small. That I think about 15 years ago, just to pick a time, I think they had somewhere in the range of 280 sewer backup issues. And that came from, in 1 year, and that came from just the general system non-maintenance. So that
I think, Mr. Journey, that's an excellent point. And, you know, we talked about our claims and the amount we pay out being kind of random. But I do feel like as we continue to maintenance our system and clean in the process that we've been doing over the last 5 years, that hopefully those claims will be less, just because we're going out there and preventing on our end mainline blockages, which is our goal. So.
Yeah, once again, my point is, I was shocked that these numbers we just got, because I thought they would have been higher, because I've seen other places and these numbers are really, and my database is really small here, but I have seen some huge numbers for other places. So I think that gives credence to our maintenance program.
All right. Need a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We won't vote.
Thank you for your time.
Okay.
Have a-
Everybody.